Right, I'm going to be making a ricotta, pistachio and honey tart. Simple ingredients for a wonderful taste. Let's go. We'll start by making a short pastry, or pâte brisée. I got the recipe from Michel Roux' book Pastry, and I feel like I'm cheating because I'm using the KitchenAid mixer and he said to mix the ingredients by hand. I need to work on my stroke affected left hand a little more before I'm able to do that. So we go with 150 grams of diced and ideally soft butter, a pinch of caster sugar and a teaspoonful of sea salt. We won't add the beaten egg yet because it's a little bit cold in my kitchen, so the butter's still quite hard and needs to be softened first. Set the mixer away at speed 1, the lowest setting. Now that the butter has softened, we can add the beaten egg and it will cream together with the butter, sugar and salt. Next, we take 250 grams of plain flour and add it a bit at a time. It took me 5 goes to add all of the flour. Once it's all incorporated, we can add the milk. But be careful not to overwork it. I stop the mixer when it's just mixed and finish it on the work surface with my hands. When it's ready and looks like a pastry, wrap it in cling film and rest in the fridge for 20 minutes. Now it's time to roll the pastry out. I'm using a 20 cm diameter, 2 cm deep ring. Lightly flour the work surface, the rolling pin and the pastry. And then start rolling the top half away from you and the bottom half towards you. Keep turning the pastry over and around by 90 degrees, brushing excess flour off as you go. Measure the pastry with the ring and use the rolling pin to lift the pastry case when it gets too large. Once the pastry is large enough to overhang the ring by several centimetres, roll it gently onto the rolling pin . And then unroll it over the ring, taking care not to stretch it out. Immediately help the pastry to fall into the corners and the bottom. Using the back of a finger, push it into the corners, making sure everything is covered tightly and with no bubbles. Dot with a fork, making sure the bottom is well covered, as this will help stop the case from rising. Rest it in the fridge for 20 minutes. Using a sharp knife, trim away the excess pastry and push the edges up a little. Now I'm not entirely sure I should have done this, as many chefs say to trim it after cooking. I'll have a go at that sometime. Now we need to blind bake the case. Get a piece of parchment paper that is several centimetres bigger than your pastry case and gently push it to find the corners. Pour in your baking rice or beans and bake at 190 degrees centigrade for 15 minutes. Remove the rice or beans and reduce the temperature to 170 degrees centigrade and bake for 10 minutes or until it's cooked. Lift the tart ring and leave to cool on a wire rack. Now for the filling. I've got 300 grams of ricotta fresca, the naturally sweet version. There are a lot of variations which are all stronger and saltier than the fresca that I'm using. Broke down the ricotta with a fork and then we've been told to add 10 grams of crushed white peppercorns. When it came to mixing them into the ricotta, it looked like a lot of peppercorns. I put in about a quarter of what we had, and even that was a little too much for me and my wife. Pistachios next. I'd bought shelled pistachios, but these also had to be blanched and then peeled. Blanching means soak in boiling water for 20 to 30 seconds. And this makes their skin easy to remove, leaving us with bright green pistachios. And we're on to the honey. I got some acacia honey because it has a sweet fruity flavour. Split into two halves. 50 grams goes into the pastry case. Sweetening the pastry and soaking up into the ricotta. You don't need to press the ricotta down into all of the corners. Just roughly spread it out with your fork. Next, on go the green pistachios. They're just scattered around on top of the ricotta. And finally, the second 50 grams of the honey. Drizzle it over the top, adding its sweet fruitiness to the pistachios and the top of the ricotta. We probably don't need to be too accurate about the honey. If you like the honey a lot, add a little more. It's best served immediately, so it's on to the tasting session. I really like the short crispiness of the pastry. I love the pistachios as well. They go so well with the ricotta and the honey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.